Welcome, everybody. This is John Palmer, Dr. Speed Selling, and this is Raging Verbalist number 156. If you've never seen Raging Verbalist before, you're in for a treat. If you're a longtime watcher and viewer, welcome back. We're always happy to have you back. Quick thing is that, we talk about lots of topics that just kind of interest me or annoy me or make me sit there and say, we got to talk about that. This is available on YouTube. Also have a Facebook group, which is the Position to Win book Facebook group. So you can always get me there. And we also have positiontowinbook.com. So if you want to go find out more stuff about me and what you might be able to buy and all of that. And having taken care of all that, we have to introduce our ever lovely co-host, Sandra. She's playing through some pain. She is sitting there, she won't tell me exactly how she had these teeth problems happen, a bar fight, whatever that might be. But Sandra, playing hurt, is here for everybody today. So Sandra, welcome.
Hello. You should see the other guy in that bar fight. Let me tell you, I whooped him good.
That's the exact thing you want to hear, Yeah. They look bad, but I won. I walked out victorious. That's
exactly.
It. All that matters at that point in time. Yeah.
That's right.
And I got it. And she punches above her weight class. I mean, she's got it all,
Pretty scrappy.
That's it. Maybe we should do a movies one, and we'll talk about movies where it's very unrealistic on some of these fight scenes. So that's it.
There you go.
That's for another time. It's a teaser for all of you out there. Okay, so what are we covering today?
All right, so we're talking about business being prepared for the future. So has business gotten back to normal, whatever normal is?
And the short answer is no, kinda, maybe, because I still see lots of businesses that are not 100% back to the way they were. So I think that there's a new reset to a new normal. And I said this years ago when we started this series that there's one thing to do kind of a course correction, and then there's a trajectory change. And I think we've got a trajectory change that's already happened, and that we're living with that. And I can tell you, having just flown through a couple of airports recently, well, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's just there's just some crazy that goes on out there every single day. So I think that it's not going to ever go back to normal. We're stuck with what we've got, and that's what we got.
All right. Given all the negative press, do you think remote work is going to fall by the wayside?
Well, I think remote work, if done properly, is actually a great way to enhance the productivity of people. I mean, it's a fancy way of saying get more work done, get more shit done. And I think that there's a lot of negativity about, first off, because people didn't have a clue of what they were going to do. And then the other part is that it's hard to organize work when it's dispersed and it's moved out. And my experience of having done that, we wrote a book about that, Remote Work for a Better World, is that the reason why it's gotten such a bad rap is that, that there were expectations that all we do is say, stay home in your fuzzy slippers and everything will be just like it is now and it's all going to work out. And it isn't. And so I think that it's not going to go by the wayside. I think some companies are going to thrive with it. I think there's going to be other companies who recognize that they don't have that personality type that can handle it. Be interesting to see if we could develop a test or some kind of, because everybody in the corporate world wants to find the easy button. The easy button would be able to have people like take a test and see if they're suited to be remote workers or not, because I can tell you there are some people who cannot work remotely. But of course, with the with the crisis that happened, everybody just got tossed into it. So I don't think it's going to go by the wayside, but maybe we're going to have remote work. How about this one, 2.0, and that will be the distinction and separation. So maybe that's the updated book that we have to do is Remote Work 2.0, which is how to really not screw it up. We gave lots of good things not to do wrong, but again, still end up with a pretty bad rap.
All right. And what were the mistakes that businesses made when they said, just work from home, just stay home, work from there?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is they said, oh, we'll give you a laptop and, you set up a little part of your house, kitchen, dining room, maybe you had a study or a little office that you had built out. And now it's like it's real. It's no longer just playing around. And they didn't necessarily develop or put together a checklist to make sure that people had enough equipment and had enough things that were the right way. There's a really big mindset shift that has to take place in which you tell people that, okay, everyone should remote work, but by the way, here are the prerequisites. Here's what we have to do. Example of that is that years ago, I was sitting there at my timeshare, and I do work all the time, so I have to make sure that it works out. And I went to the manager of the timeshare and I said, look, we just don't have enough internet bandwidth. And he said, well, I've got that on the list for upgrade next year, as if you upgrade it once and you check the box and you're done. Anybody who's out there right now who's running off of a router, modem, combo, whatever you've got, I've got a mesh in my house, whatever you're running, if it's over about 3 years old, time to probably start looking at buying new, bigger, and badder. But for the most part, people didn't do that. They didn't tell their employees, their contractors, their partners, hey, we got to figure out how to make this work. Now, the biggest mistake is that everybody, and it's called Zoom, but there's lots of different companies that do this. When WebEx was starting out, they really wanted to pitch guys like me because they said, hey, influencer, talking to salespeople, sales managers, sales organizations, this WebEx thing would be great because this would mean that we could have more people on these, internet meetings or whatever we want to call this that we do. And, isn't this going to be great? Well, the problem with it is that all the demos occurred inside of a very closed environment. So their belief was that this stuff was working great and it was working well and it did what it needed to do until you got out in the field, and then it started falling apart and falling apart and falling apart. Well, now we are where we are today, and we're still at that point in time. In fact, I'm at another location because I need to find the search for high-speed internet, and that's probably one of the biggest mistakes is we just hand them a laptop and then we're good to go. Also, if you don't have a way to express or collect things and add things and put things together, I'm talking about like tasks and to-do lists and actions and what needs to take place, is that oftentimes people show up at meetings, they put in a pretty good performance, and when they click off of that, that's the last they think about it until the next, I better prepare for this meeting, instead of actually getting meaningful things done. So those are the mistakes, and they continue today.
All right. And are these mistakes correctable?
Well, all of them are correctable, but I believe that since it's a matter of money, it's a matter of giving the time and effort to go out there and say, how do I figure out, I'm talking about as a company, how do I figure out and make sure that this works, that everybody has the right infrastructure, if you will. And some of the things are pretty minor, but there are companies that just, especially if they have an IT department, and yes, I'm raining on IT department people right now because I've had to deal with lots of clients in their IT departments. You just can't expect people are going to know, your people are going to know exactly how to deal with this. Now, just simple things, making sure that everybody has a way to test the speed of whatever they've got, just to make sure that everything is working the right way, how to build your space so it works, how to have enough frickin' outlets. I mean, I can tell you that I carry around all kinds of equipment. You got to have the right outlets. Now, one of the things is that you just have to be aware of what you don't know in this process. And there are a lot of things that people don't know. Now, this is one of those hidden gems that exists. In fact, when I talk about in the book, most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes them 3 to 5 years to realize it. And here is the real physical copy. Now, the reason why this is so important is that, yes, this is a book about advertising, marketing, promotion, and sales, but it also is talking about how to be that productive person that you need to be. And if you're not that person, if you're not able to do that, then you have to figure out how you're going to put people together. I've been doing remote work, if you will, or virtualization of businesses for many, many, many years, probably more years than I want to admit. The point of it is that we need to get smarter about how we do this. And that's why you can also go check out, oh, wrong way, check out Remote Work for a Better World. It's available exclusively on Amazon Kindle. The other book, Most Businesses Fail, is available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble Books, a million, wherever books are sold. You can ask them and they'll pick it up, or you can get it digitally for Kindle, Nook, and Apple iBooks. And finally, you can always come to our website, positiontowinbook.com, positiontowinbook.com, and find out what we have. Got some good free stuff in there for those of you who just want to kind of test it and see what's going to go on. So, Sandra, what is next? What else are we covering today about this topic?
All right. So looking forward, what are some of these specific things people can do for the future?
Well, you have to push and get higher speed internet any place you're going to go. We have to get more speed going on. In fact, if you don't have enough speed, or if you're just thinking, well, this is good enough to get by, here's the reality. It doesn't matter how much speed you have today, you are going to need more in the future. It means if you're going to have people constantly connected, you have to have the ability to have that, be seamless. If you have people who are watching, the little spinning beach ball or the little clock or whatever shows up as an icon telling you that you're just waiting, you got a problem. And you have a problem because people only stay engaged so long. So if that's seen as an interruption, and I believe that that is an interruption, just as if somebody tapped you on the shoulder and said, hey, what did you think about the game? Or what about this thing? Or what about, now that's an interruption because you're delaying waiting. So what companies have to do in the future is to know, if we're going to have somebody remote, what does this have to look like? And how does this have to fit together? And what needs to take place? Mistake after mistake after mistake is that we don't spend on that infrastructure. I can tell you that nobody thinks of it as a great grand idea. They don't see it as a lot of fun. So what they do is, of course, they do what they do, which is do as little as they can. And of course, the accounting people love it because it's like, well, we don't really have to spend that much dough. We don't have to really do that stuff. I have walked into organizations where they did have remote people, and they always go, well, old Charlie or Sally is always going to have ... because they don't have ... Well, you got to figure out how to fix that. And so my belief is that it is, if you want the alchemy of it, is that it is part being aware that you're going to have to keep investing in new technology as you go forward. There's no set it and forget it. Number two is that whatever software that you use, you need to map out what are all the software pieces that you use, and are there things that you can add that will aid the productivity of all the people who are out there, because you must keep them engaged. And number three is that you have to have a plan for communications. We have more channels of communications than ever before. When Reeves and Trout in 1981 came out with Positioning the Battle for Your Mind, their initial statement was, we live in an over-communicated world. Imagine what has happened in that ensuing many decades. Well, I can tell you what's happened, a lot. And what's happened is that we have more channels of communication and more ways to screw it up, more ways to make sure that we don't actually get our message across. We don't stay on top of things. We're not really going in the direction that we want to go in. If you have a team, you have to start thinking about how you're going to do virtualization, because virtualization is not going to go away. It's going to be here for a very long time. In my belief is that big companies and small companies are learning that if you don't have this as an option, now some things you can't do that with. I mean, if you have a manufacturing facility, you have to have people come there. But many of the ideas that we're talking about are all of the concepts we're talking about are really designed for a very specific purpose. The future is going to have more technology, not less technology. The future is going to have more of what we need to do and how to satisfy customers. And if in fact you are not doing that, you are going to be in very big trouble. So the final specific thing is that you need to have a way to not only keep track of people, but more importantly, how to make sure that you can share information that is so critical and needs to take place on an almost immediate basis.
Right. And since you are a road warrior, how does this apply to you?
Well, it turns out that being a road warrior is one of those things that, as you're out there in the marketplace, as you're running around the world, is that you discover that some days are good days and some days are, well, crazy days. And if you are ever thinking that you're in good shape, that you are don't even have to worry about this thing, just remember that Murphy always rides for free, that things will always fall apart. Remember the rule of, one is none. So if you have a single failure point, I don't care what it is, cord, device, whatever, you are going to probably be in trouble. I actually travel with not one, not two, but three Bluetooth headsets because I use Bluetooth so much on the phone and on the computer and other things. So you have to figure out what are some of those things that you need to do, because if you don't, you're not going to up your game. And as a road warrior, you can't bring it all with you. I mean, when I see people who do videos and they show this little tiny, little baby suitcase or something, well, I guess, they're not really out there doing deals. So as a road warrior, always know that you need backup upon backup of backup, or you're going to have failure points. And, failure is not an option. So we got to make sure that we do it the right way. And then the final piece is that there's a security issue on certain things. So always know what Wi-Fi you're attaching to, because you don't want to be the drunken sailor who stumbles into, well, the house of ill repute with money falling out of your pockets, because you will leave without that money. Same kind of thing. You have to make sure that you are as buttoned down as you can possibly be, especially when you're on the road. Also, find sanctuary spots for yourself if you're a road warrior. And now some of this is a club with the airline. And I've met people who say, "Oh, John, I don't need any of those things. It's not really worth it." I can tell you that when you arrive early to the airport and you can't get that flight out, having a place that isn't just booming a din of sound is a way to make sure that you are not going to just be exhausted by the end of this thing.
Right. And what are some of the things that can be done to improve the future?
Well, the most important thing is that you need to have the best equipment you can afford right now. Technology in a lot of ways is cheaper than it's ever been. And you have to figure out how to integrate all of these things together. Not easy. So that means you have to be organized. So one of the things that we can do to see improvement in the future is that when you can get higher speed internet, when you can get higher speed computing, when you can get better phones, not just so you can play a game or something, you need to ask yourself, will this make me more money? How will this transform what I'm doing to go in a different and better way? We lose time because in the end, all of these things that I've just described are all about time. Now, time is a finite resource for each person. However, the amount that we can compress and do in a single day compared to what we could do at some point in time in the past is quite radical and significant. You need to start thinking in terms of time much more radically than you were thinking before. I'll give you some sales things that you can do to really make sure that you get the maximum out of today and the future. Go look at whatever presentation or pitch that you have and figure out how to do one that takes 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes, something under 10 minutes, and write that out. It's probably the easiest one to write out. And if you're having trouble figuring out how to fill that, add stories, add graphs, add descriptors, go through that. The next thing is that once you are down to 7 minutes, now you have to say, okay, what is my 2.5 minute? How do I get it down to that? How do I get down to 150 seconds? And you really start thinking in terms of seconds. You have to think in terms of how much information you can deliver and what has to happen. And once you get it down to that, you want to basically cut it in half, but I'm going to just say 70 seconds. So what's your 70-second pitch? And finally, what is your 7-second hook, tagline, expression about who you are so you can explain it to somebody? Because if you don't have something that you can explain to somebody in 7 seconds, you are missing out. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, do not start with saying, how much can I jam into 7 seconds? I'm telling you, start by saying, how can I deliver the pitch in 7, 8, 9 minutes? Should give you plenty of time for doing almost the most complicated things. Does it mean you can answer all the questions, answer all the objections, go through every little caveat, venue, insights, all that? No, you can't do all that. But what you can do is you can have a good solid pitch, and that's very important. So that's some of the things that we need to do for the future, because I can assure you that very, very small percentage has all of these in place, let alone any of them. So if you don't feel bad, but get to it, start working on it. Make sure you reach out to us and say, hey, John, thanks a lot. I've now discovered that core message that I was trying to get to.
Right. And are you optimistic about the future of business?
So lots of people wonder about, is this the final death of it? You know, is this the death keel of it? Are we over with business? And my belief is that no, we're not. Businesses are very good at moving around, innovating, transforming, molding themselves, dealing with all kinds of different circumstances and situations. You need to always look for how you can continuously innovate, no matter what the environment is. If we're going to have tough times, you have to figure out how to make it through those tough times. If you ever look at a large corporation and say, well, you know, they're lucky, they can do that. Lots of large corporations have gone broke. Lots of very successful people have become less successful. When you have that edge that you need to push it through, you can get it done. And this is why one of the things I see about business and why I am optimistic about business is that if you deliver something of value to a customer, you can convert that customer into being eventually a raving fan. You have to be under that mindset and put that pressure on yourself in a good way to getting things done. Because if you do that, you'll have more success, you'll be more capable, and more importantly, is that what you'll do is the future will be what you make of it, not what you react to. Be proactive, make sure that you get up and say, what are the things I need to do? And one final thing, because we've talked a lot about tools and capabilities and all of that, the best tools in the least capable, least talented hands are really meaningless. The talent that has all that capability and can do it any way that you want to describe it, that they don't need any of these accoutrements, they don't need any of these things. However, it's a shame to waste that talent on needless, meaningless, time-wasting activities. Figure out those things that pay you the most, do the best for you, and drive you to a greater success. And if you do that, you can look out in the future and say, that information and that insight was very valuable. So I'm John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Speed Selling, the Raging Verbalist. You've just been listening to number 156, and for myself, and of course, the ever-loving Sandra. Thank you for watching. Join us. Subscribe, hit the like button, hit notifications, all that's on YouTube. Go to the Facebook page. Through the Facebook page, you can send messages to Sandra and suggest topics that you'd like me to go over and go through. Also be nice, say nice things. And with that, go out there and have a great life. And more importantly, the future is what you make of it, if in fact you take time to make it.